Da 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 da. Man, haven't seen me for a while. All right, let's see. So we got a new video card in this guy, and I'm now streaming with AMD's fucking encoding. So we'll see how that works out. And then of course YouTube shits the bed. Double. But yeah, I haven't done editing in a little while. What have I been doing since? Copy video URL. Well, not doing this because I'm rusty as fuck. So we say live, RAPAXORIS, Epic Fantasy Novel Editing, Day 10. There we go. Oh wow, we got 300 people in fucking LRH. That's amazing. And then where else do I put this in fucking not math. See, I won't put it there, so fucking ban me. Let's see, cool. And then I just posted to a few different Discords. I posted to the Twitch Writers Network. I posted to my fucking Discord. And then to the fucking JRE Discord. Those are just the people that I like. Well, look at that guy wearing a fucking jellyfish on it. JRE Discord is lit. Alright, so there's big RAPAXORIS. And then we'll get chat.restream.io up. Okay, cool. And then how behind am I on everything? Alright. Thank you for bearing with me during that whole thing. Future person watching this thing for some reason. So, let me give you a breakdown. So normally I don't break up editing streams like that. And in this case, I took about a month off after we did day 9. We finished like chapters 1 through 3 in RAPAXORIS, and I'm going to give you an idea of what goes on in each one of them. Boom, here's RAPAXORIS. It's coming at about 164,515 words. That's a big-ass book. For instance, the last one that I just typeset and spent 3 months working on, Big Zeros right here. Ooh, oh, it's beautiful. It's only about 50,000 words. And so one of the reasons why it took so long to get here was when I typeset this guy, I double spaced it. I'll tell you why. It's because all my manuscripts are double spaced, because that's how agents like to read them, agents and editors and stuff like that. And I import the Word files directly into InDesign, which is the program of my choice for typesetting. And when I did this, I forgot to turn off double setting. I didn't prepare the manuscript. And I could have saved myself so much fucking time had I done it correctly. But that's something to learn for the next book that I typeset. So essentially, I had to go back through and retypeset the book. So this edition is like 330 pages. When you take out the double spacing, which honestly, it's like way easier to read. It's almost like a large print type thing for blind people. But when you take out the double spacing, it shrinks down to a much more modest 220 some odd pages, right? And what that means is that the book is about $10 cheaper to print. Well, the hardcover is about $6 cheaper to print. Like I had it priced at $25. Now I'm going to be able to price it at $20. So that 100 pages is a big deal. In terms of the hardcover, the softcover went from costing me like $4 or $5 a book to print to like a little, maybe closer to $4. And this is fantastic. Like these are, there's a reason why you don't double space novels, and that's a huge part of it. The other thing that happened was that I got back from my editor, Gravid. So I'm not satisfied with the edit that we did of Gravid. The same editor that's worked with me on Space Tards and Zeros and Lemon Maybe and the Electric Lady is going to take a crack at it. And we're trying to make it a better book, one that people can actually finish without committing suicide, which is, it's a big ask. Literally everybody that I read that book stopped reading it, and they said, I had to stop reading your book. The writing's good, but it's depressing me. IRL, I have to stop. Which, it's supposed to be a sad fucking book, but not so sad that people take their own life. I try to avoid that. Really, and even as I open it up to begin editing again, I started getting depressed. More because I put 3 years into it, and there's no way it's selling to a publisher. but really, so what we're doing there is we're going to take out. So there was a book within a book there, which is a device that honestly probably usually sounds like a better idea than it really is. So in this book, there was like a book of pop psychology given to the protagonist, who was very depressed, by her therapist. And it's full of like all these shitty things that people tell you when you're depressed to try and help you. Like, just smile more, you get over it. That kind of horseshit. And what we found was that those sections were making the book very slow, right? Most readers just wanted to skip those sections. And ultimately, I decided to cut all of them, which brought the book down to a very respectable 800 pages. It's huge. It's a really big book. It's like about 200,000 words. Because that's how I wrote at that time. Now I've gotten it together a little bit more. Really, for my point in my career, I should be writing things that are about 200 pages long, about exactly the length of Zeros right here, because people don't give a fuck, and they're not going to power through everything. Everything I write has to be pretty exciting for people to finish the book. So I don't have any. There's no I know that this guy will get to a good place for me. If I trust him, because I haven't built up that trust with readers, because I am terrible at marketing and promotion. So just to recognize it. So that's completed. It was a brutal fucking month. I wound up rewriting a lot of the introduction to that book. I wound up rewriting a lot of the ending of that book. And there were just many places, one of my good friends was like, yeah, I stopped reading when you had the virgin protagonist have like a sex dream, and it was like straight out of Hustler, and I took a look at that sex dream, and it was atrocious. Even though we had edited it to make it less atrocious, it still was atrocious, and we had to do more there. So I'm really, really glad I didn't stream that whole process, because it was just a bunch of me like hunkered over a word processor, like I need my echo button there. It's pretty fucking rough, to tell you the truth. All right, but I digress. All right, let me see. What are the people saying? So a few people are like, you're back at it again. Shout out to Raborn right there. I woke up too late today as well there, but we're gonna get back into the groove of this, and I'm gonna get back into doing this every day, because it's gonna take about 200 days to finish editing this. Is my thing. So it's about day 10. And just in case you're falling into this, this is RAPAXORIS. It is a story about a sort of interdimensional dungeon. And it's really in the style of classic like hack and slash books such as Ian Livingstone's Death Trap Dungeon, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, etc. This actually began its life as a multi-threaded choose-your-own-adventure book, which had 3 different characters, and it only branched at major ethical decisions that they would make. But it turns out that there's a reason why people don't do that. It's because everything exponentially spirals out of control, and you can spend a lifetime writing something like that, really and truly. I think I got about 400 pages into it, and I was like, this is not working. This will kill me. But I really liked what I had, so I decided to turn it into a traditional novel. So within this text, you can still see some of the places where it's obvious that there was like an ethical branch, if you want to take a gander at it. So in the first chapter, we introduce Revel V. Ramos, who is our spoiled noblewoman, or I guess nobleman character right there. And we introduce Fish. So here are some assumptions in this storyline. So this takes place in the same fantasy realm that the Master Arcanist and Xanon Inc. And I'm trying to think if I haven't published anything else that's in this. But so this is like a fantasy world of my own creation that I set all my stories in. And if you play Dungeons and Dragons with me, this is where we'll play it. I'm the dungeon master. So one of the major conceits of this world is that it's all set around like a Mediterranean style Mare Nostrum, and the deeper you sail into the center of the lake, like all their ships are triremes and so forth, because they just can't do deep sea sailing. There's sort of like a river Styx type effect, where the deeper that you sail into the lake, the more of your memories leave you. And this character, Fish, is a guy who has been washed in from the lake and can remember almost nothing. He can't remember his own name. He can't remember how he got there. He suffers from a powerful and permanent, we think, amnesia. And this is just we get a little bit into how people who drink water from the lake become forgetful, but it's, hey, it's free. And how rich people drink from fountains, blah, blah, blah. So here we find that Revel is training with Fish, who is actually, in spite of his memory loss, a very skilled swordsman. All right, hold on, let me just get there. All right, and blah, 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 blah. So we start with a guy getting kicked in the balls, and then immediately we get into the action, which is we introduce a new character, El Shala, who is a lover of Revel, and we later find out the daughter of a powerful sorcerer named Arath the Unraveler. So they're getting it on in this wizard's tower, and then boom, as soon as they start to scrump, another character enters into the fray. This is young Rigel. So Rigel is a thief whose mother and sister have been sort of pressed into service as prostitutes, and he is out robbing and stealing to try and buy their freedom. So he breaks into this, like the scene of this love act that's going on right there, and steals a magical orb. For his trouble, he gets a dagger thrown at him, and it embeds in his shoulder, and also his neck gets burnt, which is blah, 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 blah. So we see him running through town, just kind of loping his way over to this tavern called the Half King, right? Where Fish is one of the regulars. There's a guy named Herkimer Half King, who's the one who put him up to the robbery, and a couple of other guys that will come into the play, blah, 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 trap is sprung. I shouldn't say blah, blah, blah while reading my own book. So this is the story about how he kind of staggers through town with a dagger in his arm, and everything hurts. Then where do we go from there? So he gets back and has to negotiate with Herkimer Half King so that he'll agree to patch him up. But they don't want to call in a healer because there'd be too many questions. Like, why is this nobleman's dagger stuck in your arm? So they decide to hit him with the silver dust. So this is another conceit. I don't like fantasy stories where there's just like magical healing and people are getting put back together when their arms are ripped off and shit like that. In this fantasy world, every act of healing essentially is a religious act. And they're not free, right? The religious powers in this story take a little piece of that person every time that they get healed. And that person becomes a little bit more of their creature, more indebted to them, more of their pawn, and less of their own person, more sort of propelled forward by some sort of Holy Spirit or whatever. We get into it a little bit later in the story. So the interesting conceit there is that healing in this is incredibly painful. Like they give people things to bite down on. It's like they're a Civil War soldier amputating a limb. And essentially the characters are rolling System Shock every time that they do this, if you remember rolling System Shock way back in the day. And it gets harder every time. So essentially, like, here's a magic dust that will heal, like in this case, his puncture wound, right? Or it could cauterize an arm that had been chopped off and keep it from festering, and generally that person will live. Throughout the course of the story, it's applied to characters, and it overcomes pretty significant wounds. Nothing like amputation or anything like that, but it might keep the amputated limb from becoming gangrenous. Or it might be able to help somebody who had a puncture wound that didn't hit an organ. It's not like some panacea. But essentially every single time it's applied, it's more painful, And everybody who uses this stuff, which is quite expensive and hard to come by also, is aware that eventually there will come a time where they try to use the magic healing and they'll just fucking die. So that's a cool concept to me. It's something that I really like. Things that I don't include in fantasy stories ever. Never, never, never. They're just things that I think are stupid and overdone. So I don't like arquebuses or muskets or any kind of like gunpowder and cannon and so forth. To me, as soon as those things are in a story, we don't have a fantasy anymore. Anytime that there's something that's like powered by steam and gears and fucking dudes wearing wristwatches on their foreheads, out of here. If you have clockwork, to me, it's not epic fantasy. It's some other genre. One where, like, if I'm reading it, I'm just like, and there are definitely like epic fantasy stories that include like gears and clockworks and all kinds of stuff that I really enjoyed. But to me, I want to get into like if I'm like visualizing like some kind of fantastic thing, I want to be more in the realm of like Hyperborea and Conan and so forth. Then I want to be in. I'm trying to think of. I'm really struggling to like think of something that's involved like heavy clockwork and steam power and stuff like that. I think some of the Forgotten Realms stuff they'll like have dwarves and goblins that do it. And it's just, it always kind of knocks me out of the story. So I don't like that. I don't like the undead whatsoever. I almost never include like ghosts or I'll get to goblins in a second. I never include like ghosts and skeletons and fucking vampires. All that shit is boring to me. And it comes down to like another thing there. Like I'm not a huge fan of resurrection in stories. Like if you think about George R.R. Martin, how hard does he like jump off the fucking shark when they start bringing dudes back to life and Caitlin Stark is like some kind of zombie queen? I didn't even watch that. Like as soon as that happened, I'm like, all right, you're fucking done. And not super interested in the rest of the series there. It is boring to me. And I don't like to include a lot of like real traditional monsters in my stuff. Like I don't have like a lot of dragons floating around at this point. I don't do like werewolves and other stuff because all that shit has just been done into the dirt. I don't feel anything when I hear about those. What I really like are where guys have come up with crazy novel monsters. Like a book that I talk about all the time is The Palm Wine Drinkard. Man, some of the monsters that he talks about right there, like this one beast where when it opens its eye, it's just fucking sucking everything in the landscape in towards it, and if you're caught in its stare, it'll devour you into its eye. That kind of shit is really neat to me because it's new. It's like a concept that I haven't think. And to me, like a monster is supposed to be something where you don't really know what it is or what it's doing, and so there has to be that concept of like strangeness and fear associated to it. Anyhow, enough of my bitching. So those are some things that some conceits that I try to avoid in my own novels, and if you write novels that are like that, go for it. Like if those are interesting to you, you can do it. They're just things that don't hold my interest well, so I try to avoid them. All right, so you have it back here. Here's the orb. So I think we did this whole chapter where Rigel gets dusted, and I can't remember if we did chapter 1.4 or not. Oh yeah, we did chapter 1.4. All right. So let me take a look and see if blah 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 blah. All right, so I'm gonna ignore this guy. Gotta disable that fucking Outlook for Slack thing. It's ridiculous. Well, excuse me. All right, well, shout out to the one person watching this on twitch.tv. It usually takes like a few days to build back into like a couple people rattling around in the chat. So for people who don't know it, my editing methodology is to read each line aloud, then we edit, and then we just kind of read through the chapter. So because I got a late start, we're not going to get into the full chapter today. I'm going to give this like about an hour or so, and we're going to get back into the rhythm of doing this every single day. And eventually I want to power through and finish it. So we're at 25 pages in, and we have which means that we only have 677 pages to go. Wait, that's not even right. 672 pages to go. So no worries. Although actually it's more because we'll have to go back and do this all over again. Lord have mercy. All right, let's begin. Chapter 1.5, RAPAXORIS, by Zagzy Wisey. The tap room was dim and empty. The tap room was dim and empty. The fire died down to embers, and pale slivers of light stole through the shutters. The room stank of stale beer. No one had mopped up last night. Hold on, let me check format. Spelling and grammar. So yeah, this is. I've been working more and more in Microsoft Word. And one of the nice things that it does is it checks grammar on clauses and so forth while you're working on them. Oh, there we go. So it does a little bit of. Yeah. Let's just check out that nobody. Okay. So I don't know how important that line is, but we'll continue. The tap room was dim and empty. The fire died down to embers, and pale slivers of light stole through the shutters. The room stank of stale beer. No one mopped last night. The room stank of stale beer. Rigel sat at the bar and poked at his injured shoulder. All right, the room stank of. How to say this? Okay. Blah 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 blah. Oh, I really want to get that mannerism out of my vocabulary. Post haste. This is not blah 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 blah. It's supposed to be a thrilling story. Okay. No, that is hack. Let's see. How did his father died? Because he would say, and I don't think we don't lay out how he dies in the story. He could die in a dice game. How do people die? A year ago, Rigel's father fell off a roof and died. if I can explain it right there. Da 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 da. Fuck you, Tunnel Black. Man, Tunnel Black is fucking garbage. I gotta get that shit off that machine. Why, yes, I would love for none of my stuff to work like every half hour or something like that. Ugh. This is what comes of using open source software. Ugh. I love that, like, when you type disconnect, that it just fucking reconnects itself, too. Ugh. Ridiculous. Alright, let's finally quit out of that shit. Ugh. Yeah, it's got. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, one year ago, Rigel's father slipped off the roof of the Seven Arms Inn. There was a storm that night, too. He must have been caned out of his mind. He fell 4 stories and died instantly, leaving his family nothing but debts. A year of his mother and sister living in the room at the top of the stairs, sleeping during the day and working nights as the whores of Herkimer Half-King. A year. A year of his mother and sister living in the room at the top of the stairs. They slept all day and worked all night as the whores of Herkimer Half-King. The fuck is that sound? Take a look at our fucking surveillance camera. Are you serious? I gotta fucking sign in? Fuck this. I'm sure it's not too important. What? Look at these dogs. In the Jerry Discord. That's wild. I'm sorry you can't see them. They're good dogs. A year of grueling work at the bar. Sailors and thieves cursed Rigel and hurled things at him. He had to hold his tongue and mop up their vomit. As the night burned on, the drunks would climb the creaking stairs, sometimes a dozen a night. A year of grueling work at the bar. Sailors and thieves cursed Rigel and hurled things at him. Hold on, let me see what the fuck that is. That noise is weird. Alright, well, I've solved the mystery. It is the shitty compressor of a spray foam insulation truck. So they're just, I guess they're spraying some foam insulation. Sailors and thieves cursed Rigel and threw things if he didn't bring their drinks fast enough. He had to hold his tongue and mop up their vomit. As the night burned on, the drunks would climb the creaking stairs, sometimes a dozen a night. When they swaggered back down, they liked to tell him what they got for their money. They laughed in Rigel's face when he glared back, eyes frozen with a hate that was cold and impotent. Eyes frozen. Eyes frozen with impotent hate. A year of sleeping in the musty cellar. A year of sleeping in the musty cellar on a sack stuffed with moldering straw, with bad air seeping up from the clammy earth and into his... That's too much. A year of beatings. A year of beatings. Herkimer Half-King was half a man, but worth two with a switch. Rigel knew if he ever raised a hand back, the Half-King would have Stirs the Hook break his arms and legs. A year of beatings. Herkimer Halfking was half a man, but worth two with a switch. Rigel knew, comma. If Rigel ever raised a hand back, the Half-King would have Stirs the Hook break his arms and legs. They'd toss him into an alley on Gutter Row. Rigel once saw a man that Stirs had broken that way. He crawled on all fours with a tin cup around his neck on a string. I think that way is important. The wretch crawled on all fours with a tin cup around his neck on a string. So we really run this a year metric on for like a fucking page, and it's a little overdone at that point. Oh, I got a sweet text. I'm gonna wear that fucking kissy face emoji out. It's losing its power. There needs to be like some kind of God, that's kind of an interesting idea for a story. Just sort of the escalation of emojis into like more and more, because you don't want to hop like right into the fucking thumping heart. You gotta leave yourself somewhere to go. But essentially, you could have sort of like a tier list, like an emotional tier list of a relationship, working up from like winky ASCII or just regular big smiley ASCII, all the way to I would give you a kidney fucking emoji, or like laying down my life to protect you and our offspring emoji. Like it was wild. I don't think you can use Jimmy in a fantasy sense. Um, it doesn't quite work. I love the word Jimmy. And I like Jerry Rig, and I do like Jimmy Pry. Nah, there's really just not another word that I know of that that really carries the gravitas of Jimmy. So we're gonna keep it. Da 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 da. Actually, making like better progress. This chapter, maybe it's just like all the work I did in the interval or whatever. But I feel stronger at editing this. He had to learn how to climb silently, to jimmy windows and to pick locks. There were always guards and dogs. No matter how much he brought back, Herkimer always accused him of holding out. Okay, so it was the longest, worst year of Rigel's life. Herkimer Halfking was an ugly, swindling, foul little troll of a man, but he'd kept his word. When he recovered from the dust, Rigel climbed the creaking stairs. His mother and sister answered the door naked from the waist up, expecting a customer. There was no shame left in them. They covered themselves wearily. Both reeked of liquor. Rigel told them they were free. He'd paid the entire debt. Their farm was still there. He'd been checking on it, no squat. Rigel told them they were free. He'd paid off the entire debt. Their farm was still there. They could return to their farm. Rigel had kept an eye on it. No squatters had moved in. The fields were choked with weeds and the fences were falling apart, but all of that could be fixed. Rigel spoke. They could be free once more, beholden to no one. The fields were choked with weeds and the fences were falling apart. But all of that could be fixed. They could be free once more, beholden to no one. They could forget this whole miserable year. Rigel could do a man's work now. They would rebuild, far from this miserable place. They would rebuild as far as possible from this awful place. Rigel's mother and sister looked at him with pity. Their eyes were dead and tired. The bright words he'd spoken. The bright words he spoke could no more get through those eyes than a bird could fly through a stone wall. What is there for us on a farm? We are whores now. What's left for us on the farm? We are whores. No one will forget. Only because you had no choice. You're free now. He had dreamed of this moment for a year. It was all going terribly wrong. If I am free, then I choose to stay here. There's food and a roof. We need not break our backs in the field. If the debt is paid, I'll make a new agreement with Half-King. I'll make a new agreement. I'll make a new agreement with Half-King. We can get a better cut. We can get a better cut if the debt is paid. But... But Shira. At least let Shira go free. When he looked at his sister, she shook her head. There's nothing left for me either. There's nothing left for me. No one will marry me. If I leave, I'll just wind up doing the same on the street for nothing. Better to stay here. The hopeless way she spoke made Rigel want to die. She was 13 years old. Damn. It's fucking wild. I'm getting pretty deep into the discourse here on this first day of our return. How long we got? I don't have much longer. Maybe we can get through the chapter. Oh, no, we certainly can't. I'm making some progress. Rigel left them and fled to the cellar to sob atop his sack of straw. He slept fitfully, and when the sun was up, the bar was closed. They were Herkimer's words. The ugly little man had convinced his mother and sister there was nothing more for them in the world. Worse, there was truth in it. Worse, he wasn't wrong. Everyone around their farm did know what they'd been reduced to. The villagers all knew what they'd been reduced to. Shira had no hope of marrying unless they moved far away. Shira had no hope of marrying unless they moved far away. They didn't have the money to travel and couldn't get it unless they kept on whoring and stealing. What was the point of anything then? Boom. Let's italicize that. What was the point of all this? Of anything? Rigel still had the nobleman's dagger. Burke's friends hadn't stolen it. Rigel still had the nobleman's dagger. The nobleman's fencing dagger. Burke's friends hadn't stolen it. Rigel still had the nobleman's fencing dagger. Burke's friends hadn't stolen it. No one wanted to get caught with it. It was inscribed, impossible defense. No one wanted to get caught with it. It sat on the bar in front of Rigel. The blade pointed at the staircase. If he could only sell it without getting caught, it was worth a fair bit of coin. The grip had spirals of gold worked in. The pommel was engraved with the Ramos arms. The grip had spirals of gold between leather pads. The grip had spirals of gold between its leather pads. The pommel was engraved with the Ramos arms, and the blade was sharp and well kept. Shut us a ghost pain. If he could only sell it without getting caught. If he could only sell the dagger without getting caught, it was worth a fair bit of coin. The grip had spirals of gold between its leather pads. The pommel was engraved with the Ramos arms, and the blade was sharp and well kept. Rigel picked up the dagger, feeling its weight. This was in my arm, he thought, feeling the ghost pain. His thoughts turned to the ugly little man who slept upstairs. His door was locked and barred, but the hall upstairs was dark. The hall upstairs was dark. Yeah. His door was locked and barred, but the hallway was dark. Oh, so there's ship poster. Yeah, I am still alive, believe it or not. I've done a show every week. Of course I'm alive. Yeah, we're still working on this story right here. Just trying to get back into the swing of it. Um, Hold on. Believe it or not, I was working like twice as hard at fucking writing as I normally would to get like I basically edited an entire 800-page manuscript in the time where I was off, and it was just so difficult and boring that I didn't fucking bother to put it on stream. It just wouldn't have been entertaining. Like, not that this is a fucking song and dance right here, but it was just too much for viewers. Speaking of which, it's 10 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'll wake up earlier tomorrow and subsequent days and so forth. But we got through 3 or so pages of this, and it's really tuning up. This is going to be a good fucking story when all is said and done, and I'm happy with what we got. So let me see how long. 800 pages. I mean, this one's 700 pages right here. Like it's going to be no picnic either to get through this. But I do. So this is like basically this chapter is us setting up the backstory for Rigel, who is pretty close to like a protagonist of the story. And I like, that he's basically like robbing and stealing to try and save his mother and sister and all that. Hold on, let me go off screen in case there's something crazy. Okay, nobody got edits today, so day 10, 1.5, and 1,000 words. And when did we start screaming this motherfucker? I don't know, I only did like an hour or whatever there. All right, well, I'll add that later. Anyhow, we'll get deeper into the mix in subsequent days. But yeah, thank you to everybody who tuned in or whatever there. Another show tonight. You know where it's at. And yeah, I'll catch you later. Penis pump.